My ex-wife lied to get full custody. My son's testimony won me everything. The final gavel sound in my divorce felt less like an ending and more like a tremor, a warning of the earthquake to come. It was an amicable enough split, on paper. Claire and I had simply grown into different people. The love had dried up, not blown up. We agreed on 50-50th custody of our son, Leo, who was 7 at the time. We drafted a parenting plan over civil, if strained, cups of coffee. I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment 10 minutes away, painted one room sky blue for Leo, and filled it with his favorite books and the half-finished Lego Millennium Falcon we'd been building together. My world had cracked, but the center being Leo's dad held firm. The first fissure appeared 6 months later. Claire had started seeing someone new, Derek. He was a partner at a prestigious law firm, drove a car that cost more than my annual salary as a senior architect, and had a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Suddenly, the amicable co-parenting vanished. Pick-up and drop-off became cold, bureaucratic exchanges. Claire began finding faults. Leo came home with a slight sunburn from the park. I'd given him a non-organic apple. I was 5 minutes late due to traffic. Then came the emails from her lawyer. Formal, chilling documents alleging concerns about Leo's emotional well-being after visits with me. They cited unexplained anxiety and nightmares. Leo, when I saw him, was the same bright, goofy kid, a little quieter maybe, asking careful questions like, "Do you have a new girlfriend, Dad, and is your apartment safe?" I'd reassure him, my heart clenching. The poison was being drip-fed. The hammer blow was a motion to modify custody. Claire was seeking full legal and physical custody, citing me as an emotionally unstable and potentially neglectful parent. Attached were exhibits, letters from a therapist, a Dr. Armitage, stating that Leo had disclosed feelings of fear around me and exhibited regressive behaviors linked to my parenting time. There were affidavits from a neighbor who claimed to hear raised voices from my old house years ago, and from Claire's sister, saying I'd once forgotten to pack Leo's allergy medication. It was a house of cards, but it was painted to look like a fortress. My lawyer, a pragmatic man named Ben, looked grim. Parental alienation. Classic play. She's building a narrative. These therapist letters, they're powerful. Judges rely on experts. The hearing was a surreal nightmare. Claire, dressed in a conservative, almost matronly suit, played the part of the exhausted, concerned mother to perfection. She spoke in a tremulous voice about her duty to protect Leo. Her lawyer, a shark in a pinstripe suit, painted me as a self-absorbed, volatile man who prioritized work over his son's safety. They presented the letters from Dr. Armitage as gospel. My character witnesses, my sister, a longtime friend, seemed feeble in comparison. My protests of innocence sounded, even to my own ears, like the denials of a guilty man. The judge, a weary-looking woman with deep lines around her mouth, peered over her glasses. The system, I learned, is inherently risk-averse. When presented with a claim of potential harm, however flimsy, the safe route is to err on the side of the accuser. The court is concerned by the professional assessment of Dr. Armitage, the judge intoned. Pending a full psychological evaluation of both parents and the child, which may take several months to schedule, I am granting temporary sole custody to the mother. Father's visitation shall be supervised at a designated family center, twice monthly for 2 hours. The world dropped out from under me. Supervised. The word was a branding iron on my soul. I was not a father, I was a potential contaminant, requiring observation. Your Honor, please, I choked out. He's my son. I've never hurt him. This is for the child's protection, Mr. Carter, she said, not unkindly, but with finality. We will revisit after the evaluations. As we left the courtroom, Claire didn't look at me. But Derek, standing in the hall, offered a faint, tight smile that was the definition of triumph. The supervised visitation center was a special kind of purgatory. A cheerless room with stained carpets, broken toys, and the lingering smell of disinfectant and despair. A kindly but vigilant monitor sat in the corner, taking notes. Leo, 8 years old now, was confused and withdrawn. Our first visit, he hugged me tightly, then asked, "Why do we have to meet here, Dad? Did I do something wrong?" The lump in my throat was the size of a fist. "No, buddy. You did nothing wrong. Mom and the judge just want to make sure you're okay. That's all." "I'm okay with you," he whispered. That was the moment I made my vow. I would not fight poison with poison. I would not badmouth Claire, no matter how much I wanted to scream the truth. I would not turn these sterile visits into interrogations or coaching sessions. I would be a harbor of normalcy in his chaotic world. I would be, simply and consistently, his dad. So, for 2 hours, twice a month, we built Lego. We drew ridiculous comics. I helped him with his math homework. I listened to him talk about school, about his friends, about the new dog Derek had bought. He's cool, but he jumps a lot. I laughed at his jokes. I let him beat me at checkers. The monitor's notes must have been monotonously benign. Father and child engaged in positive play. Father spoke encouragingly. No inappropriate content discussed. The full psychological evaluation was a farce. The evaluator, an overworked court-appointed psychologist, spent an hour with me, asking leading questions clearly sourced from Claire's allegations. My evaluation labeled me as defensive and lacking in insight. Dr. Armitage, Claire's privately hired therapist, refused to speak to me or my evaluator, citing client confidentiality. The system's gears, once set in motion by a clever lie, ground on. At the final custody hearing, the judge made the temporary order permanent. My visitation would remain supervised. The foundation of my life was declared unfit. I drove home from court that day, pulled into my parking spot, and sobbed until my ribs ached. The sky blue room down the hall was a museum to a ghost. The years that followed were a lesson in endurance. My life partitioned into 2 realities, the gray stretch of everyday existence, and the bright, precious, tightly regulated islands of time with Leo. I marked my calendar not by months, but by visitation Saturdays. I lived for them. I followed the rules with monastic precision. I never missed a visit, never arrived a second late. I sent birthday cards, Christmas gifts, all through the proper channels, knowing Claire might screen them. I deposited my child support payment the minute it was due. I was the perfect, sanitized, non-threatening father figure the court had demanded I become. During visits, I practiced what my own new therapist called active listening and emotional anchoring. When Leo, now 9, said, "Mom says you didn't want joint custody," I didn't explode. I said, calmly, "I love you more than anything in the world, Leo. I have always wanted to be with you as much as possible." The judge made a different decision, and we have to follow it for now. I saw the confusion in his eyes, the war between what he heard at home and the steady, loving man in front of him. When he was 10, he came in with a black eye. He said he fell off his bike. The supervisor noted it. My blood ran cold, but my voice stayed even. "That looks like it hurt, champ. You've got to be careful." Later, I filed a concerned report with the family court, requesting a wellness check. It was dismissed. Claire provided a receipt from a pediatrician visit confirming it was an accidental fall. Derek, I learned, was an avid mountain biker and had taken Leo on a trail. The alienation tactics grew more sophisticated. For my birthday one year, Leo gave me a gift, a cheap, garish tie. He said, "Mom helped me pick it. She said it's like the ones you used to wear to court." It was a weapon disguised as a gift, a reminder of my defeat. I wore it the next visit, told him I loved it. And we used it to play a silly game of blindfolding a Lego figure. The hurt, I swallowed. The financial and emotional strain was brutal. The cost of the supervised visits, the constant legal consultations, the therapy I needed for myself to cope with the injustice, it bled me dry. I took on extra projects, worked late nights in my silent apartment, the ghost of laughter from a blue room my only company. My social life withered. How do you explain to a date that you only see your son 4 hours a month under surveillance? The pity in their eyes was worse than loneliness. Claire's life, from the glimpses I got, seemed perfect. She and Derek married in a lavish ceremony. They moved into a mini mansion in an upscale subdivision. Leo's Christmas photos showed ski trips to Aspen, sailing lessons, every material advantage. I fought the gnawing fear that he would grow to prefer that shiny, untroubled life to my humble, love-filled but grief-stricken existence. The turning point came when Leo was 13. Our conversation had evolved over the years. We'd moved past Legos to video games, then to deeper talks about books, movies, and the confusing terrain of middle school. He was becoming a person, with his own thoughts, his own skepticism. One Saturday, he was quieter than usual. He was building a model plane, his brow furrowed. "Everything okay, buddy?" I asked. He didn't look up. "Did you really hit Mom?" The question, after all these years, landed like a physical blow. The old, hot rage tried to flare, but I quenched it. The promise held. "No, Leo. I have never, ever hit your mother, or anyone else. I have never even yelled at her in the way she described. That is the truth." He was silent for a long time, gluing a wing with intense focus. "She said you did. She said that's why the judge made the rules." "I know what she said," I replied, keeping my voice soft, a steady rock in his emotional stream. "And I know it must be incredibly confusing to hear one thing from her and spend time with me and see something different. You don't have to figure it all out today. You just have to know that I love you, and I will always tell you the truth, even when it's hard." He looked at me then, his eyes my mother's eyes searching mine. I saw not a child, but a young man grappling with a profound betrayal. He didn't say anything else. He just nodded slowly. A few months later, he asked about the court process. "When I'm older, can I say who I want to live with?" My heart hammered against my ribs. Yes. In our state, when you're 14, the judge is supposed to give a lot of weight to your preference. It's not automatic, but they listen very carefully. He absorbed that, like a programmer inputting crucial data. Okay. The winter Leo turned 14, I filed a motion to modify custody based on changed circumstances, his age and maturity. Claire's lawyer fought it viciously, submitting new statements from Dr. Armitage claiming Leo was easily influenced and that a change would be devastating. But the law was on my side this time. The judge, a different one from the original, granted a hearing to determine Leo's preference. The night before the hearing, Leo called me. It was the first unsolicited call he'd made to me in years, on a phone I'd given him for his birthday, which Claire had reluctantly allowed. "Dad." His voice was tight. "I'm here, son. Tomorrow, they're going to ask me what I want." "Yes." "In the judge's chambers. Just you, the judge, and maybe a guardian ad litem. Not me or your mom. And I just, tell the truth. A lifetime of hope, bottled and buried, surged to the surface. That's all you ever have to do, Leo. Just tell your truth. Whatever it is. I will love you and be proud of you no matter what." There was a long pause, filled with the static of his breath. "Okay. See you tomorrow, Dad. See you tomorrow, son." The family court waiting area was the same, but everything else was different. I was different. Claire was there with Derek, her confidence visibly frayed at the edges. She shot me a look of pure venom. I felt nothing but a calm, clear focus. We were called not into the main courtroom, but into the judge's private chambers. Judge Henderson was a stern, bespectacled man with a reputation for being no-nonsense. Also present was Ms. Alvarez, the guardian ad litem assigned to represent Leo's best interests. Leo, looking painfully adult in a button-down shirt, sat in a chair between them. Claire and I were told to wait outside. The next 20 minutes were the longest of my life. I prayed not for victory, but for my son's courage, for his peace. Claire paced, muttering to Derek about parental manipulation. Finally, the door opened. Ms. Alvarez's face was unreadable. "The judge will see you both now." We filed in. Leo was back in his chair, his shoulders squared, his face pale but composed. Judge Henderson's expression was thunderous. "Mrs. Carter Davis," he began, his voice low and dangerous. "Mr. Carter, please sit." We sat. The air crackled with tension. Judge Henderson steepled his fingers, looking directly at Claire. "I have just spent the last 20 minutes speaking with your son. It has been one of the most disturbing conversations I have had in my 20 years on the bench." Claire opened her mouth to speak, but the judge held up a hand. "Silence. You will speak when I ask you a direct question." He turned his gaze to me, and for a terrifying second, I thought the wrath was for me. Then he looked back at Claire. "Leo," the judge said, "has informed this court, in detail and without hesitation, that from the age of 7, you systematically coached him to lie about his father. You told him to tell his therapist, Dr. Armitage, that he was afraid of his father. You instructed him to say his father yelled and broke things. You told him his father didn't love him enough to fight for custody. You used gifts, threats of punishment, and emotional manipulation to secure his compliance." Claire turned chalk-white. "That's a lie. He's confused. His father has gotten to him." "He is not confused," the judge boomed, slamming his hand on the desk. Leo flinched but didn't look away from his mother. His gaze was steady, sad, and final. "He has provided specific instances, dates, and phrases. He described being forced to rehearse statements for therapy sessions. He stated that Dr. Armitage never once asked him an open-ended question, but only led him to confirm the facts you had provided. He said the black eye from the bicycle was real, but that you told him to imply to the court-appointed evaluator that he was covering for his father's temper." The room was spinning for me. Hearing the architecture of my hell described so clinically by my son was both devastating and liberating. Judge Henderson continued, his voice quivering with outrage. He further stated that his stepfather, Mr. Davis, participated in this campaign, referring to his biological father as the unstable donor and threatening to take away privileges if Leo expressed a desire to see him more. "This, madam, is not just parental alienation. This is emotional abuse of a child. It is fraud upon this court." He turned to Ms. Alvarez. "Your assessment." The guardian's voice was cool. "Leo is an articulate, intelligent, and remarkably resilient young man. He displays no signs of being easily influenced as Dr. Armitage claimed. On the contrary, he has shown immense strength in coming forward. His narrative is consistent, detailed, and rings with authenticity. His stated desire is to live primarily with his father, Mr. Carter, whom he describes as a constant, honest, and loving presence in his life despite the severe restrictions placed upon him. I unequivocally support his preference." Judge Henderson nodded. "So does this court." He shuffled papers, his movements sharp with anger. "The previous custody order is hereby vacated, effective immediately. Full legal and physical custody of the minor child, Leo Carter, is granted to the father, Michael Carter. The mother shall have supervised visitation, to be scheduled through a professional service, 1 weekend per month. The supervision is for the child's protection, to ensure no further psychological manipulation occurs. Furthermore, based on the father's documented income and the mother's, child support is hereby ordered payable from Claire Carter Davis to Michael Carter. He fixed Claire with a gaze that could have frozen hell. As for the matter of Dr. Armitage and the fraudulent letters submitted to this court, I am referring this file to the State Licensing Board and the District Attorney's Office for investigation into conspiracy and perjury. You, madam, are fortunate I cannot hold you in contempt for past actions, but be advised, any further interference, any violation of this new order, will result in the severest penalties at my disposal. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel cracked. The sound, which 6 years ago had been one of condemnation, was now the sound of a prison door shattering. Claire dissolved into silent, shuddering sobs. Derek put a stiff arm around her, his face a mask of furious embarrassment. They hurried from the room without looking back. I was motionless, stunned. Leo stood up from his chair. He walked over to me. I stood, my legs weak. We didn't hug, not yet. We just looked at each other, father and son, survivors of the same long war. You told the truth, I whispered, my voice thick. You said that's all I had to do, he said, a single tear tracing a path down his cheek. You said you'd be proud no matter what. I am, I choked out. I am so proud, and I love you so much. Then we hugged. It was the first real, unobserved, unrestricted hug in 6 years. I felt the young man in his frame, but also the little boy who'd built Legos with me in that sterile room. He held on just as tight. We walked out of the courthouse together, into the blinding afternoon sun. The world hadn't changed, but everything in it had. He threw his bag into the back of my faithful, slightly rusty sedan, not a luxury SUV, but ours. So, he said, buckling his seatbelt, can we finally finish the Millennium Falcon? And maybe get a dog? A real one? I laughed, a sound of pure, unburdened joy I hadn't made in half a decade. Yes. To both. And pizza. Any topping you want. Even pineapple, he grinned, testing the boundaries of this new, free world. Even pineapple, I said, starting the car. Welcome home, son. The road ahead wasn't magically smooth. There would be adjustments, therapy for Leo to untangle the years of manipulation, the complex emotions of navigating a relationship with a mother who had done such harm. But the central, agonizing conflict was over. The truth, spoken by a brave 14-year-old boy, had not just set me free. It had brought my son home. The long winter had ended, and in the warmth of that hard-won spring, we began to rebuild, together, on a foundation that could never be shaken again, honesty, and the unbreakable bond it had finally, fully, revealed.